Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for episode 1 of the Duke Sheroes Project. I'm Alexa.
And I'm Noah.
And we are both juniors at Duke, majoring in computer science. This evening, we are thrilled to introduce today's Shero, Dr. Ershela Sim.
Ershela is the Vice President for the Accelerate Virtual Engineering Program at the Governor School of Science and Math. And she formerly served as the Department of Engineering and Technology at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. And sorry, if everyone could that would be great. Sorry.
Yeah, much better.
She has developed and taught courses in statistics, biomedical engineering, electrical engineering, engineering research, and biomedical instrumentation.
Ershela also has an interest in anatomical education and lower extremity biomechanics research. Prior to working in academia, she worked as a software design engineer and later a technical architect at Nortel Networks for 5 years, developing telecommunications software.
Ershela speaks openly about her experiences outside of academia and in the community. Her involvement in outreach activities includes director of a STEM program for rising 9th graders and lead developer of the BME strand for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. She is also part of the American Society for Engineering Educators, the National Society of Black Engineers, and used to be a member of 2 Latin dance groups.
Thank you for joining us today, Ershela. We're extremely honored to feature you as our very first Duke Shero. Let's kick it off with some questions we have for you.
So our first question is, what initially got you interested in STEM? And can you touch on the importance of introducing STEM to more girls at a young age? And then also, how can you connect this to your involvement in outreach activities, specifically your work with the Step Up to STEM program?
Sure. So from probably 2nd grade, I would say I was interested in math. I'm not sure why. I just loved it. I remember learning multiplication tables all the way through 12 when I was in 2nd grade and getting a Wonder Woman poster. And when I went to 3rd grade, since I already knew it, there was a woman at my school that my mother was a teacher there, and she told her, you know, your daughter should really get tested for gifted. So I did, and I got in there. And so half a day I'd go over and take specialized like higher math and certain courses. And from there, it just kind of took off. In 5th grade, we did something called Math Superstars, which I really enjoyed. And then I was on the math team. We did Mu Alpha Theta, and it kind of just continued. But I was also fascinated by the human body. And when I was 14, I found out I had scoliosis. So I had a double curve in my spine. And when I went to the brace and limb shop, I was just amazed by what I saw. I saw some different prosthetic devices and the braces. And I had a cousin, an older cousin who was an engineer. And I told him, I said, I want to learn how to do that. And he said, well, there's a newer field of engineering. He was an electrical engineer called biomedical engineering that you might be interested in, especially since you really like math and you're fascinated by the human body. So from that point forward, I was determined that's what I was going to study. And I started looking up the different programs in biomedical engineering. That's how I discovered Duke, because it was always in the top 3 in biomedical engineering in the country. And so that's how I ended up there. And I just think that that exposure to STEM at an early age allows especially female students to gain that competence. So when you get to high school and you're in the math class, because a lot of times in my math class, it was me and one other girl and the rest were boys. And so it gives you that confidence that even if you're only one or one of 2, it doesn't matter because you've gained those skills and you've had that exposure early on. And I think that's part of what drives me to do some of the different outreach activities because of my experience and my ability to be able to connect and do something I love. Because I would hate to learn that a girl didn't get to do that because she was discouraged when she could have been really successful in it. And the Step Up to STEM program, whenever my mentor, Dr. Joanne Barber, who was one of the former vice chancellors at North Carolina School, started developing the program and asked me to become a part of it, I was really excited. And it was just awesome to be able to, it was kind of twofold, to be able to find students who were already interested in STEM at that early age and kind of catch them and increase their interest in STEM, as well as for students who from parts of the state who may not have a lot of STEM classes or different things available to them, especially like engineering, computer science, which is kind of rare in certain rural areas. It gave them that first exposure so they could become interested. I think I answered? Did I catch all the questions?
Yeah.
Three-part question.
Also, introducing just critical and like getting girls involved.
Yeah, and definitely that program. I didn't get exposed to computer science until college, so it's easy to catch better at an earlier age. Our next question is, why did you first become interested in pursuing your PhD after receiving your undergraduate degree from Duke? And what influence do you think receiving your PhD has had on your career?
So I initially thought that I wanted to go on to be an MD PhD and be a professor. I wanted to do orthopedic surgery and then teach some of the same classes that I actually ended up teaching, things like statics and biomedical instrumentation, but I thought I'd be doing it at a university. So that's what first piqued my interest. And then back then they had a gentleman that came to Pratt and actually gave a talk to students to encourage you to go to graduate school. I don't think they still do that now because I don't think that's an issue, but back then he came and talked, but I was one of the few in the room that had already made up my mind I was going to graduate school anyway. But it was initially because I wanted to go on and get a PhD and help create the next generation of engineers, not knowing that I would later have the opportunity to be able to start that with students at a much younger age. And I would say that having my PhD has definitely, even in industry, it helped me when I started off at Nortel. A lot of people would, oh, wow, Ershela has her PhD. So having that graduate degree does garner a little bit extra in addition to pay and things like that. Also, I'm in administration now, and I would not have probably been able to get into administration without having that doctorate degree. And it allowed me to be able to go back and do the extensive research, and everything that I've done thus far informs my teaching and my outreach activities.
Sorry. No, that's really awesome. I think obtaining your PhD is so impressive. And also tying into that, you touched on how you worked at Nortel. And so our third question was, prior to working in academia, you worked in these various technology roles, such as being a software design engineer and later a technical architect. So we were just wondering how you enjoyed these roles and then what influenced you later to begin teaching and what exactly you like about teaching now.
So I really did enjoy my roles both as a software developer and then the project manager when I was doing the architect role, as well as the couple of years of research I did in functional MRI before going to do my postdoc. I enjoyed that, and I feel like it gave me a lot of practical experience. I was using parts of my engineering degree that weren't necessarily biomedical engineering, but the programming skills that I'd learned that were just kind of inherent in the engineering degree. I was able to use those, and it was nice that the employer was able to separate not just that, oh, you're a biomedical engineer, but see that I could still develop software, that I'd gained those skills in my degree program and hire me to be able to do that. And from there, I did the research and I started kind of thinking, well, why did I originally get my PhD? Well, it was to teach. So that I kind of had that tug to go back and do that. And then I talked to one of my former professors at Pratt, and he kind of encouraged me to go and do a postdoc if I wanted to become a professor. So I did research at the K-Lab on campus. I went back to Duke and did my postdoc, and I really enjoyed that. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do some teaching in human gross anatomy in the medical school, and I just loved it. And I was in the process of applying for engineering positions, faculty positions at different universities, and something came on the Duke Postdoc Society for an engineering position at the North Carolina school. And I said, well, I'll go check it out. I talked to my mentor at the time, and he said, well, sure, go and check it out and see what it is. And when I got there, the chancellor had a very interesting idea. He asked me would I be willing to help them start an engineering program. They had an applied science program, but they were really interested in developing their own courses and wanted a 5-year plan. So I accepted the position and kind of started from there. And the program took off in 2000. So that was 2009. In 2012, I became their first dean. But I really enjoyed getting to teach students that were motivated because they had to apply and get in. So it was very similar to college. They're just a few years younger, very motivated, wanted to study engineering, had the math skills and all that. And so I could develop and teach the same classes I would have been doing at a university and even doing research with them. So that was really neat.
Yeah, awesome. So we know that you've done a lot of work as a faculty advisor for the National Society of Black Engineers. And our question is, what would be your advice to women of color, especially young women of color, trying to find their place in the industry, on how to deal with challenges they may face and how to overcome those challenges?
So I would first say that they should seek out multiple mentors, a primary one, but then maybe a few others, depending on what area of industry they may want to go to. They may have a mentor that kind of can give them advice on, negotiating salary things. They may have a primary mentor that's all across the board, but I would say having multiple really strong mentors that you can go to when you have these problems, who can help encourage you. And then I would say just to have a healthy dose of grit, because as women, we are going to meet these challenges, but just not to let them beat us up and get us down. Also, a piece of advice I'd give as far as salary, always ask for what you want. Don't ever feel bad about asking for what you want. I have once had a male mentor explain to me that a lot of times the reason why, and this isn't the only reason why women get paid less, but a lot of times it's just because we don't ask. And I was lucky enough to get that advice early on in my career, because at the end of the day, they're only going to give you one or two answers. It's going to be yes or no. So if you feel that you're worth that starting salary of $110,000, then you ask for your $110,000. They may negotiate back and forth with you a little bit, but you won't have not gotten it because you didn't ask. So I would give that piece of advice, and always sell yourself, because our counterparts are going to sell themselves, our male counterparts. And so as women, we need to feel comfortable in our skin and know our worth and our value and be able to speak to that when we're interviewing or networking. And another piece of advice, definitely network. So use this opportunity. And I know you guys are good at doing that. You're doing the Sheroes project, which I'm very proud of you guys for doing that. And then just like Annie reached out to me over LinkedIn when she missed the meeting and that type of thing, all of that is very, very helpful for being successful.
Right. I feel like those are things we hear often, to like seek out a good mentor and things like that. And then what would be your greatest advice in how to find a mentor, essentially?
Because a lot of times people may think, oh, that person's too busy, this is their career. Just, email. You may think that professor's too busy or that business person's too busy, but shoot them an email, find them on LinkedIn, something like that. You'll never know. The president, my boss now, his mentee, she came up and spoke to the school. She's a successful physician. And it was all because when he was a professor back at RIT and she was in middle school, she emailed him and asked him to be her mentor. And I don't know, I guess she wanted to go there and saw his research and what he did. And she reached out to him and he did it. I had a 10th grader reach out to me over the summer and asked me to be her mentor. And I'm very flattered. So you would think, oh, that person's too busy, but a lot of times they're very flattered. So don't hesitate to reach out to the person. If they don't respond, they may be too busy or something like that, but it doesn't hurt to just simply reach out.
Yeah, definitely. And then our final question for the two of us is, since receiving a BSc in biomedical engineering from Duke and a PhD in biomedical engineering from UNC, what are some ways you think education in STEM has progressed? And specifically in terms of diversity and inclusion, you touched on this a bit, but what advice do you have for current women pursuing an education or career in STEM?
So definitely, I would say the availability of STEM offerings at the K-12 level is much different than it was when I was in school. Like I said, I was lucky enough to be a part of the gifted program, but never did I have the engineering courses that are available. Even I'm starting to hear, I went to a International Association of STEM Leaders conference a few years ago, and there were women teaching coding to elementary school students. And so, there are a lot of the different movements like Black Girls Code. National Society of Black Engineers has a NSBE junior division that starts at 3rd grade. There's STEM camps like my Step Up to STEM and all types of things around the US. So I would say that there are a lot of STEM things. There's also STEM and computer science and engineering focused on, and science as well, focused on females. I've seen different programs in that. And then there's the whole, AP computer science. They've changed the AP computer science curriculum. And so the initial curriculum was more targeted, I would say, at students who would traditionally go into computer science. But the new Principles of AP course is designed to grab those, females, underrepresented students that might not traditionally pursue degrees in computer science. So I just see things starting to change at that K-12 arena that is hopefully going to help in college and university. And then as far as, you said in terms of diversity and inclusion, what advice I would have, I guess just for the students, to make sure they are collaborating with their colleagues, working in teams, and kind of helping as much as they can promote that team mentality, because some of the most successful companies in industry are the ones that understand that it takes a diverse team to make the best product, because, you may be designing that safety device, but you've got to think of, for short people, for tall people, for people of different sizes, for males, females, anatomy. One person can't think of all that on their own. So it takes a group of diverse thinkers in order to come up with the best product.
Yeah, awesome. I totally agree with the group thinking. Very important.
Hopefully everything will keep progressing. So thank you so much for answering all of our questions. So we now like to open up the floor to our interactive participants for a live Q&A session.
Okay.
So we'll do Annie.
Am I on?
Yes.
Hi, Ershela.
Hi, Annie.
So you were saying earlier that you were interested in science and math as early as second grade, and I was the same way. But for girls that may not have that same ingrained interest, what do you think is the best way to encourage all those girls to go into STEM, or at least try it out from a young age?
Hopefully the parents will be willing to get them engaged in some sort of activity, even if it's through, some STEM involvement with Girl Scouts or things like that. And I think the more people like myself and other people in the STEM field as a career can make those opportunities available to students, that will be helpful. So that's why outreach is so important. And I know a lot of granting institutions like NSF are now having faculty members put an outreach component in their grants, and then their specialized grants, iTest and DRK-12, that are specifically for STEM outreach. And so I think those types of initiatives are going to help make things more readily available so that parents can have their children engaged in an early age.
Hi, I'm Swathi. I was wondering, so you've done like a bunch of different things throughout your career, and I was wondering, how did you know it was time to move on and try something else and go in a different direction from what you had done before?
So early on, I would say I'd start to feel a tug, with the industry. I enjoyed doing the software. I did really well at it, but I kept feeling like, there must be a little bit something more. And so I eventually kind of sought out some different research opportunities at the university, because I wanted to start to kind of get back into my field. And I did. I found the functional MRI. There were no postdocs because I didn't want to move. I was in the area and I had a house. So there was no postdocs in biomechanics open when I first looked, but I found the functional MRI, which I found very interesting. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I went back to my undergraduate advisor, and he put me in touch with another faculty member at Pratt, and I was able to do a postdoc. And then I did that for a while. And obviously when you do the postdoc, after you finish and have your publications, it's time for you to start moving on and looking for a faculty position. So from there, it was kind of a natural progression. But initially I felt that tug, like I'm doing well at this, but I want something more. And I think, with my generation, they say we will probably maybe work up to 10 different jobs in a career time. That I've heard that your generation, it may be as many as 40. It's going to be quite a few that you guys are going to change jobs quite a bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ershela. So first of all, I just want to say thanks for coming to talk to us. And so you mentioned that you helped start the engineering program at the North Carolina School of Science and Math, and also that the kind of K through 12 level of schooling for engineering and computer science is changing a lot these days. But I know that my own high school and a lot of other high schools still don't have engineering programs. And I guess for me, like I didn't really understand what engineering was, to be honest, until college. So I was wondering how you think we can spread engineering and computer science to students, to high schoolers and middle schoolers who may not be exposed to these fields at their schools.
So one way is to suggest that your high school possibly look at opportunities through organizations like ASEE. So because they do have a K-12 division, and maybe consider getting their things like Project Lead the Way, which is what North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics originally had, that schools can send teachers to be trained. So they'll send math and science teachers to be trained to do the Project Lead the Way. Duke is actually one of the Project Lead the Way training sites. And so that's one way to help a school get involved if they don't have that expertise. Another way is to look for some statewide opportunities that may, or even out-of-state opportunities. I know Duke Tip is a big one. And then North Carolina School has some summer programs that students come from all over to do. But it is, I think it's probably going to have to be a policy change that states start to require a computer science course, engineering course for graduation until it becomes really widespread. And so I think it's going to take a push at the policy level for K-12 education to really make that shift and for students to truly understand what engineering is, because right now it is in pockets and it's kind of nice for the students that have it, but then for those that don't and they don't learn about it until college, then that kind of puts them at a disadvantage. So I understand where you're coming from.
Thanks. And I actually had one more question. You mentioned earlier, or you kind of gave some advice to not be afraid to ask for the salary that you think you deserve. So do you have any other kind of advice catered towards women specifically in the tech field?
Also just, like I kind of said, knowing your value, standing strong in, I've got this degree, I'm good at this, I know this, and kind of, not being aggressive, but asserting yourself because you can back up, you can walk your talk. So just feeling comfortable in your skin and doing that, because oftentimes as women, we may not feel as comfortable walking our talk when we are very well qualified. So just having that confidence.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ershela. I'm Anika. I'm studying computer science at Duke. I'm a senior. So sad to leave, but it's encouraging to see women like you that have had amazing, exciting, successful careers coming out of this program. I also have two questions for you. Okay. One might be a little harder than the other. The first is, who do you root for? If you've been to both Duke and UNC.
Oh, that's not hard at all. I will always bleed royal blue. So Duke.
Okay. In that case, I can now ask my second question without any qualms. But my second question was, you've spent a long while in school studying BME, which is an incredibly rigorous subject. And even like all the women and like anyone I know at Duke studying engineering and computer science, it seems like we all have many moments, whether it's like a hard project or a really difficult class that we're taking where it feels like maybe we're not cut out for this, like maybe this is too hard. How am I going to survive in an industry where the work is a lot harder? Have you had moments like that, whether it was during or your master's? And if so, what were some of the things that allowed you to sort of persevere through those times?
So definitely, and oddly enough, because I love it now, statics was not my friend when I first took it, when I took the BME biomechanics course. And I remember just getting really frustrated with it and my mom telling me, go talk to your professor. And at the time, I just thought, he's just so scary. I went and talked to him. It was amazing. He was the nicest man. I went to him. He worked with me on my problem sets. And I fell in love with biomechanics from there on out. So it was, and that's why I can so strongly give that advice of, making sure you talk to your professors, talk to people, because, if my mom had not given me that shove to go and talk to him, who knows where I would be. And then there were some times during like postdoc where you get frustrated, the data aren't coming out the way you want, and you're just like, can I do this? But just kind of pushing through, okay, it's going to be a new day, and call up a mentor, talk through it, come up with another strategy. We're going to get results. We're going to write this paper. So it's going to be a little bit of that all along the way, or getting a paper rejected, things like that, but just pushing through.
Awesome. And I actually have one other question specific to your work in education, especially as a woman pushing for more women in STEM fields. What are some of the, maybe if you have any rewarding moments or moments where you're like, wow, this is like really working, when, I don't know, maybe a student has said or done something that was encouraging in that way?
Yeah, it's funny that I guess the movie Hidden Figures came out year before last, and I got the most encouraging note from one of my former students. She's studying engineering at NC State, and one day I went to my mailbox at work, and it was a page-long letter. And I mean, I loved having her in class. She took several classes from me at North Carolina School, and she was just really thanking me, for being a role model, and, for offering the courses and teaching, and just that gave her some confidence for going to study engineering. And I never knew any of this. So I just thought that letter was really sweet. And then one of my mentees who had done my Step Up to STEM program then had come and gone to North Carolina School. We actually went to go see Hidden Figures together. And right after that, she wrote a very beautiful post to me on Facebook, and I mean, brought tears to my eyes, but was just thanking me for being her mentor. So it's times like that make it really, really rewarding.
That's wonderful to hear. Thanks for sharing.
So thank you so much, Ershela, for answering all of our questions and for sharing your thoughts and your story. It's been awesome to hear from such a driven and accomplished woman, especially a fellow Dookie. And thanks to our interactive members for being part of the episode and asking such great questions.
And as many of you know, this is our first episode hosted by the Duke University chapter of the Sheroes Project. And great job. We are looking forward to many more exciting events, both live and online, where we hope to share the stories of more technical women at Duke and in Durham. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram for news and updates on what we have planned. And any Duke student who wants to join the Duke Sheroes Club, please contact us at the email in the description.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Ershela.